I do.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for coming back. We appreciate this. We have, everybody have the packets that handed out for tonight, with all the minute updates and all that, your folders. If you didn't, there's more up here. Anybody have any questions on where we left off the last time? Right, and we're gonna jump into this agenda for tonight, a copy of which, all of you have. And some of the discussion points, moving in a direction that wanted to move in, at our last meeting. And, I will turn this back over to Sean and we'll go from there.
All right, thanks, Chairman. Reminder, silence your phones. And restrooms, ladies to the right, gentlemen to the left, out the doors. So in your packet tonight, the items to be distributed. Minutes from the last meeting. A public report from New York State DOH. And there's 3 questionnaire forms that you can fill out. However, tomorrow morning, you're going to receive these questionnaires in an email, and you can go right online and fill it in, and it'll automatically tabulate for us. If you don't have access to a computer, then just fill it out manually and bring it back in, and then we'll tabulate it up. Also here, distributed tonight is the civil service job descriptions for the 2 titles that are covered by the agency. And then if it relates to supplies, as we know, the consultant recommended that we do, in essence, a purchasing consortium. That if nothing else, individual agencies aren't buying on their own, the county would act as a facilitator and distributor for supplies. Hopefully that the greater quantity unit pricing would come down. It would be a modest, cost savings perhaps. And that's for those vehicles that are not purchased on state bid. You'd have a bigger opportunity for savings. And if there's going to be a procurement system, then we would need to have a system of it. Is it going to be a drop ship? Is it going to be for warehousing? How are we going to handle county orders? The county pays a vendor, then we would need a system for distribution for AP and AR. And then you may all have independent vendors who you're going to, so I would need to get a list of your vendors to determine who has the best commodity prices. And then we would try to put together a master list of all supplies. There's an example here of what DOH recommends are in rates, as well as the best practice for another state. We just need to work through those mechanics. Then you have asset management. We talked a little bit about it before, but as we move forward, if there's going to be a consolidation of agencies, then what do we do with the rigs? What do we do with the equipment, the housing, those types of things? What is their value and how are they going to be each individual town as an asset value? Is that asset value going to be purchased? What is the depreciation schedule on it versus it's just given to the system, and that would mean that the town would therefore no longer be in the business of buying those supplies, buying those rigs, buying those records, buying. They would become, in essence, the possession of the newly formed agency. But we have to go through those decision points of what are we going to do with the value of those assets? How are we going to determine them? And who's going to own them? And is there going to be compensation, or is it just going to be donated to the new system? The caveat on that is if anybody has a loan, if you just bought a rig, and there's a loan, then certainly the consolidated agency then payments going forward. questions on any of those topics before I move on? Anybody got a question on it? All right, then there was a discussion also on GPSing the rigs themselves. Jim, to turn it over to you, help me out on that technicality on, we don't need the GPS devices. Jim? Speak up, please stand up.
Everybody signs in on mobile and keeps themselves logged in. That's an automatic feature built into the system, so we're not relying on any other secondary devices.
Everybody understand that? I did, so that's why I had Jim explain. All right, then the meat of the bones tonight. It appeared that the alternates that were recommended by the consultants, number 2 and number 3A seem to be the points of consensus, I guess I'll use that term. But there's a little bit of difference between the two of them, and number 2 had the region broken down by our traditional geography, mountain top, valley, and river, but with an overarching management structure. Don't know how that would play out. I'm gonna presume that 3 independent geographies, those vehicles would be stationed there, and that's what they would remain until we had a mutual aid call, and then, of course, they're gonna move into the other geography. I'm gonna presume that also means that we would need to increase the number of rigs that are gonna be out at any given time. That's an assumption on my part. 3A was just a consolidation and is a countywide system, of course, also with a management structure. A little bit of a difference. We would need to really zero down more on the mechanics of the operation of each, if it's gonna remain 3 territories versus the overall system. We really clearly need to understand how that's gonna work. But we need to make a decision, and then that research can happen post decision on how best to understand the implications and the consequences of each. And at that point, I guess I'm gonna just open it to the floor. And we'll let the dialogue run. Obviously, everyone knows we have recording devices here for our minutes proposal. We have a camera here, so we're also filming this, and it'll be up on the website as well for consumer consumption, I guess.
Not live, right?
Yeah, it's not live, it's taped, it'll go on, so. Please, no swearing, I guess. All right, so I'll open it to the floor.
You know this group.
I'll open it to the floor. I did make an assumption there that of the alternates, it was 2 and 3A that we were gonna refer to, unless we're gonna come up with a whole different alternative that was not outlined by the consultants. And, I mean, which way do we go? What's the better way?
I think 2 is we're gonna need more resources. We're going to need more management. I think number 3A is really going to give us the best bang for our buck.
Okay, within each of the 2, I think the other decision point that needs to be made is, are we gonna maintain this separate but equal fly car followed by the transport box? Are we gonna continue that, or are we gonna actually then remove the fly car from the operations, and we all have the transport vehicles, but the transport vehicles are staffed with the full paramedic classification? And that's why I get back to my broken record standpoint is response time. How are we going to define the response time that we want? And does the fly car get action to the patient, and we let the transport come behind it, or not? That's no matter which of the A or B that we're talking about, that secondary decision has to be made too. Are we gonna just kind of keep the current system but have a new governance? So we're really gonna change the makeup of the fleet. George?
Reading about what you actually do with flight cars. Decision from down the road. We're supposed to be worried about BLS transport units. And in reality, you can, whatever you decide you want to do with flight cars, you can do it at any point in time. So you come to a decision on, okay, this is the best system for providing ambulances, make sure we have enough ambulances to transport people to the hospital. Whether Greene EMS stays where they're at or gets folded in at some point down the line. Okay, that's great, you can get to that, but I think we could spend a lot of time and effort initially on that decision. As opposed to talking about what are we doing about the ambulance? How are we gonna make that part of the system? Thing, we already know, we got the ALS portion already figured out. But you don't necessarily have to do anything with that right at this point in time. Right?
Another thing to remember is Greene EMS has better timing. They're quicker than any other, if you look at all the data. They're beating any response time, no matter how you look at it. So I think George is right. I think right now the thing is BLS and not worry about ALS and leave it how it is for now. And then as we get down the road and get our system successful, then we can work with it.
Okay. I think that's
Son,
John,
just to add on to that, you mentioned with the Greene EMS having the shorter response time, stuff like that, that's because they're currently doing an internal system status, which is what we would look to blend with all the ambulances as well.
They can move around.
They're moving around, shortening enough response times. And another thing with the response times as well is sometimes people will get hung up on, oh my God, we're a couple minutes behind the average or something like that. We also run a tiered system. The majority of the calls, these ambulances are not running lights and sirens to them. Those are by national and international recommendations, response guidelines. So just flipping the lights on something may save 30 seconds to a minute here and there. So it's, most of your calls are not where that minute or two is gonna make a difference.
right,
But
right,
yeah,
not every situation is like that.
yeah, and the overall time would improve with a system status system. Like the medics do currently, but you'd be able to blend the ambulances all in to that similar scenario.
My concern is, do we have the resources to keep doing both? Do we have enough to keep staffing paramedic trucks and transporting ambulances, whether they're ALS or BLS? I think that's kind of where we're hung up right now. Because the resources just aren't there to continue doing what we're doing. And I think if we're gonna design a system, we design it the way we want to see it. In per penny, in per pound, you know?
Are you saying resources as labor or resources as money?
EMPs and paramedics.
How possible is it and seamless could it be to give confidence to everybody, especially the towns and their public, their constituents, about going from 2, seeing how that works out with 3 regions and then blending it to 3 as we go forward? Is that a difficult thing to do, or?
Start with 3 districts. And then
Move to
over
3,
time,
we have
see
some
emerge into a
confidence that the
centralized
system,
system.
you know, is viable, and then look to improve it after that, rather than directly cutting off.
Problem before you block, yeah.
I know it, with Fitch, it's saying it's a little bit more expensive, but that's just an estimate right now.
Well,
Go ahead.
to Mike's point though, having the 3 districts as opposed to one generalized unified system. Within that single unified system, you can still have technically 3 districts. But
at a less expense. Because I think one of the problems that Fitch was saying is if you go with the 3 districts, you're looking at potential different branding, different logos or whatever for your mountain, valley, and river. I think by going with one unified system, you're gonna improve efficiencies, you're gonna improve retainment, also recruitment, because now you're presenting actual outline of potential promotion ladder, as well as improving buying materials and unifying training on that. Again, I'm not an expert with it. I have to defer to the guys that are already working in paramedics. Just going through from what I've been reading, I think that the single unified system.
So for clarification, I didn't mean to suggest that the 3 agencies would be independent of the, you know, it's just the geography of how they respond by calls. You know, just think it from a geographic standpoint, they would all be, that's working for the same employer.
Well, I think the financial difference is you're gonna have 1 chief instead of 3 chiefs. When you talk about the difference that's on the books, what they're showing on the difference on cost.
Yeah,
It really boils down to administrative. It doesn't really boil down to paramedics or, you know, BLS or ALS. It's just administratively, you're going to one.
right, well, if you go under system design there, there's a notation about, makeup of staffing and like a middle management, the shift supervisor call it. He's not an administrator, he's hands-on, but somebody during the shift that can make decisions and direct people. Do I have 3 of those because I have 3 quadrants, or do I have 1 of them because I have one countywide system? Well, those are the things we have to wrestle with, depending upon which alternative or define 5th alternative. And I'm not the expert on that. I haven't been through this before, so I can't help you on that.
Ron, do we have letters of commitment from the towns about proceeding forward with this?
That's a little bit later on in the agenda.
The big elephant in the room, to be honest.
I don't know if that talking point, Mike, if everybody flips the page on the agenda to the financing of it, maybe that's the gorilla in the room. The worksheet that was handed out, the landscape worksheet that outlined costs, we've issued it again. Ray has kind of updated it based upon actual numbers now for 25. So the system, the towns collectively on their levy are contributing. Remember, this is a levy, this is not the total budget. But it's about $4.5 million in town levy. And then the county does an additional 2.3 on top of that. What happens to those contributions? How are they going to be amended? How are they going to be changed? Do the towns continue to contribute in as they do today? That goes into a centralized system? And then what do you do with the excess? If there was, I think it was Pat, not to put you on the spot, Pat, but made the suggestion at the last meeting that the town contributions would continue, but they would remain flat. That over time, the financial burden for the town would lessen because the system would pick up the increases in the future. But that could also be split 50-50, so that the towns could receive a break on their budget. But that means the system would then have to pick up the difference. And then there was the issue of, would the state allow us to form a special taxing jurisdiction, and how would that map affect that distribution of what is currently being paid by all of the entities involved?
Right now, they will not.
Right now, there is no legislation, right? There's bills, but whether or not they come all the way to gubernatorial signature, I don't know.
And one of the things that I did here after the last meeting, based on what you just said, Sean, with remaining with a flat town contribution, The problem that some of our towns have is this year, their budget numbers are going up to a level where they can't do it again. So they're at the breaking point right now. And if we left them at that level, that would be a problem financially for the town. That's a concern that I heard from at least two, after the last meeting.
Two towns,
Two towns.
okay? So you can change that map anyway, any way we want.
The problem with paying a flat amount is some towns are paying a huge number than other towns are paying peanuts.
Right, so how do you provide equity to the equation? That's why I have on here, is it, do you do something based on call volume? Do you just transfer the cost that we have today? Do you do it on assessed valuation? Do you do it on per capita? You can slice this pizza any way you want. I'm sorry?
Whole volume doesn't sound fair to talking prison, still has all the nursing.
Not when they're separate districts right now.
How do you do whole volume based on these outcomes?
Good point.
I think the transfer of the money that the towns collect from the taxpayers for the ambulance service, if that just went away and went to the county side of their tax bill initially, it would be a wash. The towns would be alleviated of that tax burden. If the legislature of the county approves this moving forward to solidify EMS services, I mean, I think that's the most expedient way initially.
Right.
I would agree. But that's exactly the concern that I heard from those two towns, was that this 25 budget has already exceeded their ability to pay. So if you left it at that level, they're gonna have a real problem.
No, I think what Mike's suggesting is the budget allocation in the town would go away.
Right.
It would be transferred to the county,
Right.
so the citizen in theory wouldn't see a difference. Because
Right,
the issuance of the town and county tax bill, one levy is gonna go down, the other one's gonna go up by an equal amount.
Exactly.
The town, well,
But then what do you do with the town budget number?
town budget, now let's talk about gorillas in the room. Does the town truly cut that equal value from their budget? Or do they transfer it to the Parks Department, or do they, because it's their money, it's their decision, they have a board. But, and maybe it goes back to the willingness and the commitment letter that we were gonna talk about, is are they gonna truly commit to, for every dollar that we spend today, we will cut our budget by an equal amount. And then certainly the first year, the county legislature will need to override the tax cap certainly, because my levy is gonna go from $27 million to, I don't know, $40 million every year.
33.
What's that?
33, I think, over 33 and change,
Well,
without the asset.
Unless you can pick up a bunch of extra revenue.
yeah, without the assets, and look, we haven't even talked about payroll yet, and how things are gonna change with payroll and benefits yet. Cause they're gonna change, and they're gonna go up. So it's difficult at this point to understand what the new budget would be in a consolidated system on either 2 or 3A. We're gonna have to work through that. But I think Mike's point is that trade-off, towns go to zero, county picks up the value, is that what we want?
We should also consider having, if that's what we do, possibly the towns donating their equipment. If we're taking this fully off their budget.
Well, they're not all town owned. Right?
Correct. Yeah. Well. Yeah, again, what we talked about here under E3, so just quick, go ahead, share that donating equipment. Our taxpayers have already purchased the equipment through their tax. Why would we give it to the county that they're gonna pay tax on another service? I didn't. Say it again, I didn't. We donate our equipment that the taxpayers also already purchased through paying their taxes. Why would we donate it to the county where they're gonna continue to see the same amount of tax, but on their county tax bill for equipment that they already paid?
Well, they won't see as much of a tax increase as they will if the county has to purchase them.
So what we,
So.
an alternative What I have here is there a depreciation schedule, the county provides a reimbursement based upon value today. I mean, the rig you bought 5 years ago is not worth the same amount that you paid. And how does the county then compensate? Is it one check once, year one? Or do we give you credit? We pay you over 5 years because the impact of the county is so severe. When you think about the asset value between the rigs and what do you do with the houses, the barns, where things are at, what's gonna happen to those? Are they gonna revert to a highway department, perhaps, because of the barns and the garages? That would have to be looked up. I understand your point. Your taxpayers had to buy that rig 5 years ago. I guess.
So maybe there's an agreement to give that credit rather than a cash exchange. You know, in your first year, you pay nothing in your town.
Well, Mike's example was there would be nothing year one. If we're gonna start out with some town contribution into the system, then you can provide a credit. So rather than pay $500,000, we give you $100,000 credit. So that year you owe us $4,000, and then thereafter it goes up to whatever we negotiate going forward.
Well, and also depending on the design of the system, you're gonna need some of the buildings.
You're right. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, so they're all not gonna get surplus.
Well, the whole, Sheriff, the whole thing is if you are, I'm a town Catskill taxpayer. I contributed to pay for that ambulance. But I, as a county taxpayer, did not have to pay twice for that ambulance. So the point is that between your town and your county tax bill, say it's $500 per home, it's still $500. It's not the town now, and the town's was $200 at the time, and the county was $300. Well, now it's $500, but the town is $0. Still the same amount. It's still the same amount, so it's no harm to the taxpayer, it's no increase to the taxpayer. And Sean said previously is, obviously, if towns had to borrow to buy ambulances, well, the county would just assume that debt payment until that is paid for. So towns are washed of it, you know, in an accounting way.
Or you sell the asset.
What's that?
Or sell the asset if you didn't get it.
Yeah, if one of the barns, because the issue of the barns may change too, depending upon which alternative, because that location of that barn may just not work. Because we're constantly moving, depending upon which option.
Dawn,
Go ahead, please.
something to consider too when it comes to this barn or station. If the county did need it, doesn't necessarily mean we have to acquire revenue from the town. We could rent it. So at least
True.
that way the town maintains ownership of the property, now they got to bring revenue from it.
Yeah,
So the county's not on the hook for the entire asset.
and you can do it over time, you
Yeah.
know, we absorb the first hit and maybe 5 years down the line. If that location still works, then we buy the asset, but in the meantime, who's paying for the leaky roof or the boiler or the whatever, would all have to be managed out. Those are details, the bigger issue is, what is our system gonna be? If George's suggestion is concentrate on B, then A, but A is gonna have to, eventually, you're gonna be folding these agencies together, even if we maintain separate acts in terms of how we respond to an accident. Eventually, all the employees would be all in one. Hey, come on, you're in the business, what do you think? Where's your spot?
Or anyone who needs help.
Well, if I have a heart attack, I'm calling you first. Anybody else?
Back on the subject of a commitment for the town. We don't know what we're committing for yet without signing on. That's why we're having this discussion.
Yeah.
So, I think we're all in this room because we have the same goal. you know, to consolidate. But I don't think anyone's willing to jump up and say, hey, I'm in, because you don't really know what we're in for.
What are you in for? Is it two or is it 3A, and is it, what are we doing with assets and what are we doing with people, and I get it. So that's why I come back to page one. 3 districts, all, you know, owned by the same entity, overarching management. Or is one single district, all owned by the same entity. I don't, you know, hang on, Tommy, I don't know from the standpoint of maybe Jim, in terms of the diversity of 653 square miles, does it make sense to have a district? But what do you do for backup calling, and what do you do for that? Go ahead, Jim.
So. Super hesitant to comment on a lot of this because I've never run EMS a day in my life and I don't intend to, and I respect everything that you're doing. But from my 30,000 foot view at the 911 center, we know how many ambulances we have working today on an average day, matching the number of ambulances that they're recommending for this new system. But you guys know, we're running out of ambulances every day or every other day. System statuses are great, but when it's still out of ambulances, what do we do then? So that's an even bigger fear for me than the response time. I think the response time, as Sean said, will help with the system status. But when there's no ambulance to respond at all, because we just simply don't employ enough at the time, that's my concern from the dispatch center.
Recruitment and retention is gonna be an issue we're gonna have to face, which is the last item on the agenda. But you're right, I mean, presumably, if it's, the way I look at it, a review of wage scales and benefit systems, does that make us then attractive to surrounding county personnel? Somebody wants career change and come into the system. Does a three jurisdiction option increase the number of rigs that we gotta have on versus a single system? I don't quite know the answer to that. Intuitively, it says we're gonna have more rigs with 3 than we are with 1. Well, that's true.
Geographically speaking, 3 zones make the most sense because the geography of the county is so vast.
Well, and the seasonalness,
Different rigs on the mountaintop than we need in the valley.
well, plus you have a seasonalness variation as well, you know.
I mean, he's gotta run 4-wheel drive ambulances in winter, where we don't need that on top.
Good point, but if it's a single system, we continue to buy and deploy the 4-wheel drives to the mountaintop.
Right, but that's why I'm saying geographically, these zones, back on those zones, makes more sense than one entire. I mean, even the sheriff's got how many substations? Now,
Yeah, 4. Right. No,
Right, but I think for clarification though, having one system doesn't necessarily mean all the buses are gonna be turning out at one location. There will be, correct if I'm wrong, right, there will be buses in the mountain, in the valley, and on the river, but they'll be strategically placed throughout the county. They're not all just going from one central location. So you don't necessarily need to have, you know, 3 districts. Because even if it's one unified system, you're still gonna have assets in those respective 3 districts. It's gonna be at a more efficient cost. And that's, right?
Either way, singles it.
yeah, Tom, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, you kind of answered the one question, Sean, as far as, I mean, I'm trying to take it all in, but one system, what's the matter if you have 3 divisions? But when you were saying mutual aid, and if we have 3 jurisdictions, is that 3 separate items to the state as far as like Remo? Or is it all fall underneath the same certificate?
You can see at the CON, I'm gonna presume that the single CON, how we divide the county up.
Countywide,
I'd say, I think the overarching thing we want to be confirmed here is response time.
Say again?
Response time. And once, if we're gonna design a system, we don't want to design a system that has 15-minute response time. We want to design a system that has reasonable response time. And what is reasonable for us, I don't know. Before we even look at cost. To Tommy's point, he can't commit to anything because there's nothing to look at yet. We've got a lot of really smart EMS people in this room, including Gordon, Aiden, Steve, Deere, Bo, all these people. Lock them in a room.
They're in a room.
Not this room.
Is that a lot now?
Not this room. I'm saying get the politicians out of the room.
But people know what they're doing. Hey, I'm out of here.
Exactly, and let them say, okay, this is the response time, and how are we gonna meet this? And where are we gonna, how many units are we gonna have? Are we gonna keep supply cars? I can tell you this, if you're gonna have 10, 12, 13 ambulances on the road, you're gonna have full-time supervision of that system. You have to have full-time supervision. You've gotta have supervisor and supply car that's managing it from moment to moment.
But CD 2-1.
I don't look at but I think we're spinning our wheels until we get to the point where we have something concrete to look at. We've got to talk about the parameters, what we want to see in the last two meetings. I say we let some of the EMS folks put something to paper. And we can change it, we can modify it, we can say, no, it's too expensive, but we're just gonna keep talking here.
Oh. I see it every month, but,
I would say,
you're right, but. Why we're here, I mean. Purpose of these meetings is to come to a consensus on a solution. Go ahead, George.
Those that I've talked to about this, I've said all along. You tell me how much you're willing to spend, and I'll design a system based on that. We can do that. We have the expertise that can do that. Tell me what you want to spend, we'll spend that money as wisely as possible. But until I know that, we can't design a system that's, and again, my greatest fear, this time around is that we spend time and energy and effort and money, to come up with a system design that ultimately is determined that it's too expensive.
Well, I understand your point, correct? Hang on, Jerome. I don't, if the goal is to design the appropriate system, money is gonna be the money.
I agree.
I mean, I don't wanna back into a car count because I've only got, okay, if you need 12 rigs, then what does it cost to staff and house and supply 12 rigs? That,
Even though the recommendation was 10.
yeah, forgive me, I'm not a board member, I don't vote, so I don't wanna be flippant about the cost. Be damned, who cares?
No,
I don't wanna back into it.
If you're gonna build a system, you build it to succeed. You know,
Well, again, that's the other concern, are we trying to design the best system, or the cheapest system?
there's, I don't think it's a cheap option.
All right,
Daryl?
it's not about the money. If we're gonna be about the money, then we'll keep what we got now. We're trying to do something to provide a better service for the county.
What we have now is not working.
The last thing you wanna find out is what the budget is. The first thing you wanna find out is what we need and how to get there.
And I think you'll get significantly less pushback on fire, police, EMS in just about every location. When there's a need for those three things, you're gonna get less pushback on it.
Somehow, again, as I said last meeting, Mike just said a little while ago, we have to find out if the towns are interested. They're gonna buy in. I understand what they're saying. We're gonna spin our wheels again, it'll waste a lot of time. Will we be received by the towns? We need some kind of a signal from the towns before we keep moving on this period. We need a commitment.
Harry, I think if there wasn't a commitment, us guys on the mountain wouldn't have went to you guys last year and started the discussion.
Right.
And been here today,
That's all good.
know.
At the mountaintop towns. Or the other towns, we need a commitment.
I kind of agree with what George said, I think, and Mark said, but I think we need to hear from the experts also. George, Mark, Dawn, Bo, Aiden, you guys are in this field. Maybe put your heads together, come up with something, present to us next time.
Well, why don't we take a break, give them a
I think they need some time to talk without all of us. This is a very large group.
I think they all have a pretty good idea right now how many ambulances they think we're gonna need in this system.
I think we know by
Looking at the data and talking with themselves and then coming back to us.
What's the number then? What's the number of ambulances that they think we need?
Well, we have 10 now, and at one point today, we were down to 2 in 10 minutes. Gone. So
Can't hear you.
we have 10 ambulances now, and today, in a 10-minute time, we have 2 left,
We have 10 countywide.
countywide, right? Am I wrong? 10?
That's every
So
town.
what is it, an
That was
additional
what we
2
had
days?
today.
Yeah.
Today.
Oh, we have the average.
Probably about 10. You know, my question is, we're all in this room, we all kind of got thrown into this room. Who can raise their hand and tell me what's broken about the system as it is now? And that's not me being a smart aleck, I'm saying, people came down and said there needs to be a countywide study because there's a problem. What's the problem? Is it there's not enough ambulances? Because we can fix that. Is it because there's not enough employees? You should probably put a line in the agenda every month where Steve Neer stands up and says there's not enough providers to staff the system. We can just eliminate that part of the agenda. But what's the problem? Is it they're concerned about response times? Is it they're concerned about care? Is it they're concerned about the number of ambulances? What is the problem? Because otherwise we are spinning our wheels here trying to fix a problem and we don't know what it is.
I heard there was a transport problem.
If you're asking me, it is a transport problem because there's not enough transporting ambulances. And I understand how that looks coming from the fly car guy in the room. But the fact of the matter is that at certain points in time, there's a lack of ambulances in the county. Now, that's just my feeling. You can fix that by agency way. You can try to consolidate into a county. My greatest fear is whatever happens, there's no take backs. You can't get to month 2 of a new system and go, oh crap, this is not working. Let's go back and give all the towns their ambulances back and let's bring the fly cars back. So I'm going crazy over here because what's the problem?
Personnel is the biggest problem.
Personnel is the biggest problem no matter what.
That's the biggest problem. I think we all own enough ambulances, we can deploy them, we call an extra shift when we need to for the weekend and that seasonal aspect. But the biggest problem is personnel. We touched on before, there's a problem with personnel working 36 hours straight or 24 hours straight, working 24 hours straight for Hunter, then come work 24 hours straight for me. That's a problem. Personnel is the key problem.
So how's that fixed by consolidating?
It puts all your employees under one umbrella. You run the program similar to the way the sheriff runs his department. On a platoon, you work 12 hours, 2 on, 3 on, 2 off or whatever. So your employees get a rest from the stress of doing this job, which is very stressful. And it diverses everybody else. You know where everyone's at.
It's not a plug and play system. You can't wake up tomorrow morning and say, we're gonna go to platoons and rotate them because nobody's life is set up that way.
That's where you have to start and develop it,
Well,
you know?
I understand that, but then you're taking the 80 providers in the county. It's not a concrete number. It's just not. We have to understand that. You could snap your fingers and say it's countywide, it's ALS ambulances everywhere, and you're gonna have a group of people that go, thanks, but no thanks, the morning shift at Stewart's looks great, I'm out. You could say, we're gonna keep it as it is now, and it's gonna be 5 fly cars and all PLS ambulances, and some of the EMTs are gonna go, I'm out, I'm not into that, I want to have a medic with me. I don't say that to be devil's advocate, I just think that if the reality is that there's a personnel problem, it's only gonna get worse. Because you have an aging population of providers, you have people that are 3 years from retirement, they're gonna say, see ya. You've got people that, you know, go to paramedic school, now you don't have as many EMTs. I mean, Aiden, I'm gonna throw him under the bus, but we've pulled all the resources from Greene and Columbia County that are possible. It's squeezed as dry as possible. If anybody wanted to switch careers and become an EMT, it would have happened by now. So my fear is it's such a personnel issue. How do you fix it? Is it pay? I don't know. Is it shifts? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just a paramedic. But that, more than money, more than units, more than anything else, I think it's a personnel issue. I have 40 people in my agency. I have an open shift Friday. I can't fill it. I'm gonna work it. Right?
Why,
That's the reality.
Sean, in Fitch's report here, on page 4, they list their key findings and outline what the problems were that were found. The lack of performance metrics, geography, seasonality issues, siloed EMS agencies which increase risk, need to regionalize services, system lacks a culture of safety, dispatch services should be expanded. Right there on page 4 and 5, kind of addressing some of this. You know, what are the issues with the current system? That's what we paid these consultants to do. Right there, that's a big balance.
why, okay, I guess we started this journey on the mountaintop towns, basically coming to the county legislature saying, our towns can't do this anymore, we don't have the resources, be it money or personnel. Okay, that's why I think the transfer, the budgetary transfer to the county, eventually is, that's gonna be the solution. The county's, I've watched them shooting at me here. The county's budget is gonna go up some number to be able to absorb this consolidation. Some consolidation here, be it geographically driven, or system-wide. The ability to attract personnel, maintain personnel, train personnel is gonna come with a cost. And my hope is that if we can get pay scales up above a market value, they'll come. But we need to know how many is that gonna be? Is it 10 cars today? Is it 12 cars? How do we handle the seasonalness of the mountaintop? When all of a sudden, knees are being blown out on a sunny, snowy day. Daryl,
I thought one of the main objectives, and this was brought up years ago at the first go around, was so that the paramedics would be offered not only a good paying career, but that they would have an end product, where they would have retirement, they would have whatever they needed to do. And they could have a family instead of working 24 hours a day all over the county, all week long. That would give them a lifestyle. I thought that was one of the most important points that we were trying to do, which would also increase the service that we're getting because the guy's eyes aren't falling out of his head, goes over a heart attack victim because he just worked 40 hours straight. I mean, that to me was one of the most important things. Right? Wasn't that?
no, because you have the differences between, town to town to town, and then in between you have a not-for-profit 501c3. This is gonna go municipal. Period. I don't think there's any way around not going municipal.
No.
Which means,
That's it.
which means there'll be a pension by New York State. Paid for by the entity that employs it. Healthcare, vacation, that whole litany of wages and benefits, all comes with it. Which also will increase the cost because we have to, I don't want somebody making $16 an hour coming over me when I'm having a heart attack. I want the paramedic, I want that paramedic paid well, who wants to come to work, not because they need to make a mortgage payment, because it's a career they love. So, Jared, something I've discovered now in 12 years of pay and benefits does not help staff. Because Town of Catskills has state retirement, has excellent pay, has great benefits, and we still struggle for staff. I don't think the pay in the state, and the retirement and all that is what's gonna attract.
How much upward mobility is there in Catskill?
Yeah, we just take place everywhere. Yeah.
Plus, I mean, is there that much? Like, ability for somebody to move up in a system that's smaller? Does that change if it's a larger system?
Well, you're still talking about what, 5 shift supervisors instead of we have 2. I mean, it's not a hugely larger hierarchy than what we run now.
I think it does matter, I agree though. Current workforce, I'm not part of that with my age, but current workforce places less emphasis on the long-term benefits of things like the state retirement system. Where they're focused on is the immediate benefit of that higher hourly rate, work-life balance, those types of things. So, yeah, we're paying comparably, but we can't attract people. We're not paying enough in this county, any agency, we're not paying enough to get somebody to drive 30 minutes from Albany or 40 minutes from Poughkeepsie, to come here and work. Because we're just not paying, it's not working. Well, yes, everything else.
Well, it's hard to have a work-life balance when you're working 70 hours. And the shifting and it's all one entity, you're not gonna have somebody hop, do 24 hours here, it's all like this, 12 hours there. Yeah, they're just gonna hop out of the town. Well, they might, they might still have a part-time job someplace. I didn't welcome to America.
I think we've all experienced that. I think right here in the county, just this past week, we've increased pay for certain agencies to provide services, and it's not making a difference on getting the service provided. So that's a danger, and it's really, it's really the state of New York. You have population leaving because we're so overly regulated. Maybe your industry in EMS is so regulated that you know, people are frustrated and they're leaving this state. So our population decline, maybe we won't get people, no matter what you offer here, because it's still the umbrella of New York State. And I think you gotta try to do the best you can. Darrell's right. I mean, we wanna provide a good service first. The money part is secondary. But, I mean, if that's the case, if that's the trial run, you almost run a pilot program and offer maybe the county to subsidize the pay to see if you get more people. Or, I don't know, something like that. But, I think this gentleman's right, that you go to a county system, you're still gonna struggle to have labor, which is needed to fill the ambulance, which are needed, so.
Just a question really, and it's really focused on those who are in the business. What would be a list of the major barriers to having a larger pool of employees to choose from? We talked about immediacy of pay, we talked about long-term benefits. But is there a lack of trained EMTs and advanced paramedics in our area? I get it. So I'm focusing. So if it is a personnel issue or most initially, we do have a community college that has one of the most recognized nursing programs. And maybe we need to think a little bit further out of the box to our college for Greene County residents that we could even have scholarships for that would be willing to enter into this field, and maybe with an agreement that they then sign an agreement to work with us for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, something like a program to address the personnel issue. We can address the finance issue. We will figure out how many units need to be there. We can figure out the rotation. We can figure out all those things. But if we're saying that we first and foremost, we have a personnel issue that, like George pointed out, nationwide, well, what can we do to address our own personnel issue locally? And we have a facility at the college that is already well established in the medical field and nursing field. I don't know what the pivot is to EMT and advanced life support, but you would think that there would be a potential pivot there that we could encourage the college we fund to participate in a program for Columbia and Greene counties to help address this need. And I would think that that would be good money spent
to help secure our system. Will we keep them forever? There's no guarantee of that. But we may be able to look at this from the educational point of view and take advantage of some of our other resources for what it's worth.
And the key point though, schools and hospitals do this, where they'll say, we'll pay your student loan debt, but you gotta work for us for 10 years in order to pay that off, so. I definitely see that there's some sort of synergy where I'm doing something like that to help with the group.
Yeah, we probably agree being an Ivy League type pricing, probably Greene's quite affordable. When it comes to this topic, you know, I would say.
But the county does some of this now. We do pay for the EMT training, through, yeah, Ray Mauer used to run that training.
Council.
What's that? Yeah, thank you, the council. And we have picked up people, because the county has paid for that. The follow-up discussion on that would be then paid for the paramedic training. Okay, how far do we go? And on Mike's point is, yeah, if we're gonna do this, you owe us 10 years of your life. Or you pay us back. Very common in the industry. Steve.
I was just gonna talk about the EMT program already. And we already have a scholarship program that if they get the scholarship, they do have to sign a contract saying that they will work with a Greene County agency for at least 1 year, or they have to repay the money. We are currently trying to up the level. Of course, the state has much hoops you gotta jump through. You gotta have people interested. It honestly just seems like now we're getting more and more people interested. I think our class right now has 32 people in it.
Oh,
That's actually being going on right now.
But I don't think a lot of them are going out in the field, some of them are research or volunteers.
Okay.
They're not looking to do
They're
it.
not there.
All right, let me pick up on Steve's comment, and let me turn to my EMT personnel in the room. What do you see? You're in the chair. What's gonna get more people on your shift?
I mean, we keep talking about making a one county municipal agency. And just to play devil's advocate, I think all agencies except for 3 in the county have municipal benefits now. So if municipal benefits are the end all be all, how come those agencies aren't crawling with applicants?
Part of it is because I'll speak for
That's not true.
we're part-time. So even though I'm municipal, I have the majority of my employees that aren't getting that benefit package. Because they're part-time status, they're not getting vacation, they're not getting hospitalization. They're getting a paycheck and they're under retirement, but they're not reaping the benefits as my full-time employees are making.
Or is that a choice to make them part-time?
Well, it's all economic.
Sure.
It's all economic.
Come down to the budget, that's
When I put a full-time employee on, it's anywhere between $25,000
Right,
and $30,000 just on the healthcare side
I got it.
of putting it. So then I look and live within my means in my town. And I can only afford to sneak on 1 or 2 every year to try to build my staff up.
So wouldn't that problem just get worse if you make it bigger?
Well, no, for one thing, the county's, I'm gonna get into the weeds for a moment, but Tom buys his healthcare. Standard treatment, just like you do on your car, okay? You don't break your leg, there's no cost. The county is self-insured. So I don't buy a policy. I provide family healthcare probably for 1/3 of the cost of what he can provide for, because the county is so large. I insure 1,400 people.
But that's your side of things. The benefit that I, as the employee, get is similar.
The healthcare,
Yeah,
it's probably the best healthcare plan you can buy.
so county or municipal or.
He's not providing it because it's too expensive to him.
Right.
So therefore, I'm gonna presume he has a hard time recruiting because people want good healthcare.
Right.
It's a good benefit, it's the attraction of why I wanna work someplace. The county can do that for 1/3 of the cost of what you pay, because the economy of scale by going to the larger agency kicks in a bit. So, but I wanna answer, I want an answer from the people in the field today. George, you raise your hand, so you're first. What's gonna put more people in that truck?
So, Keith raised a very good point. We can do more towards recruitment. The problem is, who's going to do that? Okay, individually as agency administrators, don't have the time. Don't have the time, don't have the resources. I just had a conversation earlier this week with a colleague from Saratoga County. Money is no object, but they still have difficulty attracting people. They partnered, because they're all independent nonprofit services up there. They partnered with the county, and the county used county promotion department resources to put on basically a campaign, recruitment campaign with a single source to apply. Just respond to the email address to apply, and then that information, the applicant information, is sent out to all the agencies in the county saying, hey, here's a pool of applicants who expressed interest. That way, number one, the applicant doesn't have to contact 8 different agencies to say, hey, are you? Are you hiring, and how do I go about applying? And likewise, as an agency administrator, I don't have to track down these people and chase them all over the place.
Well, a centralized system is gonna have an HR department. Okay? And we're gonna advertise, we're gonna have work fairs, but again, I want an EMT in the audience, and tell me, people, got a hand.
I work in the administrator of Town of Kentucky, but I've also worked for Greene County paramedics I've been a paramedic for over 20 years, for a long time. So I'm one of the higher paid employees, number 6 on seniority. I don't think, like Steve said, it comes down to money. Because Greene EMS is one of the best agencies to work for. We have a lot of freedom, we're fly cars. We have state-of-the-art equipment, and it's not about money. Like Steve said, he still can't fill a shift on Friday. We really need to think out of the box on how to recruit and retain. Like, not just what people get paid for now.
Okay, I can agree with that, but my ignorance tells me if I'm looking at a job application, you know, I'll go to Walmart for that money.
Well, you can work at
That's the
Stewart with
problem.
no skill level and don't have to go to college and make most of what we're making as free paramedics, which.
Look, at the end of the day, the person has to have the desire
Right,
to be in the industry. You can't,
right, you can't make what we do up, like,
no.
not everybody can do this job.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. But at the end of the day, if I'm comparing job to job, eventually economics,
Right, right,
Yes,
no,
and
you're right, I mean, money does play a factor, we all have children, we, and roof over our head we have to pay for, but it comes down to personality.
but you're not answering my question. What puts people in your chair?
If I knew, I'd do it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have a vacancy on Friday, right?
Right.
I think it's gonna be a combination of a lot of things when we sit down and start diving into this, coming up with some sort of system.
Advancement
Yeah,
is
like that was
definitely gonna be a key factor.
The career pathing possibility?
Yeah, like if you have an agency and you can have people where you can, okay, like you can move on to the paramedic level and you're putting a bill for that. And when we paid for people to go to paramedic school and they're still working for us. It's been a few years. And it's like, but in this system, you're gonna have instructors. You can maybe, have ACLS instructors, health instructors, public outreach, different things where people can move up into. Maybe that would make our track. Because I think, it's funny, because when we look at Columbia County and Greene County, I said this before, it's like Columbia County doesn't have an agency in every single town like we do here. And when people get stuck on response times, that kind of drives me crazy. Because you look at Glacier Rescue Squad or Greenport Rescue Squad, they're great agencies and get paid, but they cover a multitude of towns. Like you don't have town or an ambulance in every single town like we do. And I think that's what is part of the cost problem here, is that up on the mountaintop, probably we joined all 3 towns together. It's around 1,100, 1,200, I don't know for sure. But like in the town of Wyndham, we average about 520. That's not a lot. And then you move to Ashland, and they do less than we do. And that is part of the problem. It's like not every town has that. And then you look at Greenport where, you know, obviously, you know, where they're located, it's gonna take them a little bit longer to get the stop. You know, it's not like these response times, you're never gonna have an ambulance 5 minutes from everybody's house. So that's like, you know, crazy, but it's like, yeah, and it's like, so the response times getting hung up on that, you know, if we do system status, well, that does help, but as far as like making people wanna come to this, it's not the greatest job, but if you, maybe there's room for advancement, because a lot of people, they want to medical school and become doctors, you know, this is like a stepping stone for them.
One of the questions I ask in most interviews is, when are you going to nursing school, or are you looking to be a doctor?
Going to be.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Are you going to nursing school now, next year, or 3 years from now? Because it puts a timeline on, it's EMS is stepping stone.
Because historically, as a field, we've done nothing to break that cycle. Like, we're kind of our own worst enemies in that aspect of things, but
We need to go into schools and do career days and recruit people.
this is all part of a larger.
Well, I think with the centralization of effort, it makes it much easier. Rather than having 10 kingdoms, there's one.
There's one, but you control everything from the ground up.
Correct, Darryl?
You know, Dawn, rather than ask the towns if they're willing to be part of this, first strategy, probably to reach out to all the,
Hey, speak up. All right,
rather than being interested in whether all the towns are gonna be part of this, all county, you should reach out to the EMS people and say, listen, is this something you're interested in? Would you rather work the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until you're 65? Or would you rather have a stable job and a home life and a steady paycheck? If they're not willing to do it, we're just wasting our time.
I guess I'm gonna make the presumption they do.
What if, what if? Kind of along the line.
I can't hear you.
Kind of along the lines with Daryl is if you had a central group or a representative from each municipality. Therefore, you set up like a QR code, somebody that is interested in it, they can shoot the thing with their phone, they get the information, and there's a point of contact. You could see what they need as far as schooling, what the county offers to go to the county, or the community college, and where would the resource be beneficial for them within the county to do their training. At least if we have a hub or a resource for somebody that's just dipping their toe into the game, at least there's something for them or a resource for that person.
Are you talking about for EMT class or the paramedic class? Okay, we already have that in town and each representative
I can't hear you.
as council. So if you have a chance to your agency, they should know all about it. And that's where the county legislature actually is giving scholarships, so some areas if they can't afford it, that they would cover for the cost of it.
It's about the scholarships.
Yeah.
What do you
We need to go back to county getting the money to it.
I was just saying that we have an EMT program in this county. I know everyone keeps talking about college, but we have one in this county.
There is no training at Columbia Greene.
County legislature started 3 years ago.
Yeah, and we still have.
$800 to $1,200 per person.
But now is the paramedic training the next step that we should take? And we need to create our own career path.
Well, that'll-
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge goal.
Start right there.
Yeah, you can.
Again, what?
There's a paramedic program at SUNY Colesville, there's a paramedic program in Hudson Valley. It takes 2 years basically to become a paramedic, or it's a 1-year program if you're already an EMT. It takes like 6 months. 6 months to become an EMT. There's no training at Columbia Greene. You need to be a CIC recognized by the state to teach a class. That's its own bunch of hoops to go through. Then you need CLIs to teach lab scenarios. Now the state just changed the regs. You need so many CLIs per student. If you don't have enough CLIs, you can't have enough students. You need physicians to oversee it. You're not gonna pull EMT and paramedic training out of thin air. I'm telling you, don't even waste your time talking about it. It's not gonna happen.
Right, that's why we work with EMS council.
It's
on the EMT class.
it's probably a-
Schedule all that.
It's probably a bigger deal to create EMT and medic classes out of thin air than it is to create a countywide agency. And you have to get it approved by New York State.
there's ed standards you have to live up to. It's that program and a half.
Well, we got to the moon in 10 years.
Well, would you know what the price and the cost is to gain EMT status and paramedic status from SUNY Gold Skill?
$12,000.
Grand, $13,000.
Roughly 1,000 per man, 1,000. Right there, sir. I'm honestly not sure about that, and I'm also probably and that's where it seems like.
All right, so I guess, certainly not winding down the meetings, but the issue of getting the practitioners in a room between now and January 8th, or if that's not really feasible, February, whatever my date is in February. I'd rather not lose a month, but it's also the holiday season, I get that. But in the meantime, I think we need to keep this momentum moving. You know, the system's not working right, we gotta do something. Is it gonna be perfect? No, are we gonna fall down a couple times? Yep. Maybe the answer Tom's concern, where do you go? Over there.
It's back there, Tommy.
No, Tom, point.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, I was sitting there. And I guess, and I'm not meaning to speak for the legislature, but the reluctance of town supervisors to commit, I think, some of that is predicated on what's the county gonna do? Is the county gonna contribute more into this solution? Because at the end of the day, it is gonna be a money problem. So what do you need to hear to your town board members?
I think the main thing we need to hear is that we're not gonna go back, because the level of service we give our people. The level of service that we give our residents, that it's gonna be status quo. You know, if I went back to Wyndham and said, oh, my ambulances are all gonna become BLS instead of LS, they're gonna run me out of town. All right, so the conversation that we started this study that the ambulance were all gonna become advanced life support was a real hit for us up on the mountaintop. Everybody liked that. But I hear what Mark's saying, if you have 10 or 12 ambulance out in the system, you're gonna need supervisor, you're still gonna need somebody out working and giving assistance that are gonna be in some kind of mobile car. You call it a fly car or what do you got, so we do have to morph a system to make it better. But like I said, I can't speak for Prattsville or my friends in Hunter, but we've kicked this around for a long time. We're ready to be the guinea pig for the county. If the county were the one to take this as a piecemeal and start with one region at one time, we would step forward and say, we're your guinea pigs and let's.
We Wyndham or we Mountaintop?
We Mountaintop. That's the discussion we've had at our Mountaintop supervisors. We're in it together. We know we can help create a system that works. And if we had to be the guinea pig to let the rest of the people in the valley realize it can be accomplished, we're in.
I'll speak for Prattsville to that notion, that's accurate to our meetings that we've had. I will speak from Prattsville's standpoint, something has to be done with finances because we're literally going broke. I mean, our current $310,000 amp for down at Prattsville for 139 calls, we can no longer sustain. Period, end of story. So if that guinea pig turns out where we can have a tax system that taxes somehow equally based on taxable value, it has to spread that cost over more people for small communities. It's just the reality. Our ask for 2025 is $310,000.
By $600,000, $300,000.
On
$640,000.
no, I
So it's 1.3 calls a day.
Yep.
It's just a whisker under $600,000.
I mean, I'm with Tommy. I mean, I think we have a lot of good people on the mountain that can make something work. just a matter of how you move forward with that concept potentially.
Well, could we get a meeting together with those who are in the leadership positions at your agencies now and answer that question like George asked? How many ambulances are we gonna need to run a 24/7 system and do it adequately, cover the county adequately? Answer that question, but I think at the same time, do we want to start looking at, get numbers back from everybody, on the questionnaires that are there on asset values? Do we want to go back out to Fitch and Associates, because they will also do that study for a charge? It's not gonna be a free thing, but they would also do that. I know they did it down in, Fort Worth, Texas. It took them about 3 months to do Fort Worth, Texas, so, they can also do that for us. I don't know if we're gonna have the resources to do it all. So it might be an option, but that's something that we wanna look forward, to getting an estimate from them to find out what they'll charge us to do that. George?
But I need more on my plate, but I'm committed. Said that from the beginning, committed. I spent almost my entire career here in this county. I'm committed to seeing this through, to having something, we can look back on and say, yeah, we did the right thing. I'm committed to working with the rest of the agency leadership to get the answers to those questions. Jared, of course.
Sean, I think you put together this evaluation committee, and that seems to have a lot of those people on there. Maybe posing some of these questions to this evaluation committee, having them come up with some scenarios or some answers, and then bring it back to all of us.
I believe also what you said, that we need to have a neutral entity, so that way there's no skin in the game from any municipality and everybody's getting the same shape.
That's what I like with
It
this.
actually work.
They've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, and we've seen a lot of different things. I would be 100% fine with getting a price from them. See what they want to do that next step. Do the asset evaluation.
Well, it's the next step, but it's also a next investment. And really what our goal is.
Well, if we're gonna get that, so we're gonna go. They're only fair when we do it, but I think they would also look at how did that, asset then get dispersed.
But that's the
As a
county.
credit or something like that.
And what I'm saying, that's the county's commitment. These guys are looking for commitments from people, then that's our commitment. The fact that we need X, Y, and Z.
We can call Fish back in, but they're gonna want, well, what do you want us to investigate? What solution do you want us to put together to help you get from point A to point B? I respect Con's concept of a test run, a beta, if you will, but
Gonna require.
there's 8 other towns that are also struggling at the same time. I don't wanna spend a year solving a problem for 6 communities when I've got 8 more that are also all in the same boat.
Well, it'd be hard to do. Legally, right now, it would be hard to do from a CON standpoint, something like that, because there's no way to establish that as a tax entity and notch out those 6 mountaintop towns. To become, in order to be county expense, it would go to all county taxpayers.
Correct.
Hopefully, that's gonna change,
Hopefully in January,
we'll
maybe.
see. Again, we'll see. But I think it's a worthwhile goal to get a price from them on what the next step study would be. I think that gives us a fair evaluation of what's existing today. And I think it gives us the ability to not miss things that would be considered assets, because they're used to doing this.
We can also probably give you a range for wages and things like that that are realistic. We got something to plan on there. Improve salary.
That evaluation is gonna have to get made eventually. Sooner or later, we're gonna have to do a market evaluation, no doubt.
Exactly.
Paul?
Anybody have any ideas to how to get some of these squads to cooperate as far as these surveys? In our case, we have a contract with Greene. They do not cooperate with Fitch as far as giving any information in their study. Is there anybody here that has some pointers on which road to go? Can you foil that kind of stuff? Do we have to file, get the town attorney involved and,
There's no foil involved.
That's what I'm getting at. There was two towns, two rescue squads that didn't even participate in the Fitch study.
Right, the only thing, you got to cancel your contract and ask them, your neighboring communities,
Hit them in a while.
they can.
So good job. They're in Greenville. Well, that's what I did. They're in Greenville. So we're actually, they're measuring this study, this is called Star.
One at a time, please. All right, what's Mike to do? I'm sorry, Phil?
I'm expecting, given the time, I think he's got a great idea. Problem is that, we're still gonna have a problem with staffing, as Steve said, because we share the same employees, right? Your guys, our guys, they work, they all work around together.
That's the job number 5.
Well, yeah, but like Tommy, we have guys go to Wyndham, Wyndham has guys that come by us, and then, Anderson's got people that go to Ratsville, Lexington, so somehow, it can work, but we have to figure out how we're gonna come up with more people, and that's a problem for everybody,
Well, some of it can help because these people that are working 3 jobs, they're doing 12 hours here,
Right.
12 hours here. Where now you're working on one full-time job. Helping that with.
Absolutely, with that, but that's the same thing, Steve said, it still comes down to people, we have the rigs, we have the facilities, we offer the benefits, and, but you still need people.
All right, so for the next meeting, then, I have someone send out an email to that group of the leaders for the various agencies to set up a meeting, right? You guys meet, brainstorm, come up with I don't know, 6 to 8 bullet points, whatever you think. Is gonna increase staffing, what would help do that? And that's paying for paramedic school, and it's paying for paramedic school. So I think that's a worthwhile goal, for the next meeting as well, as getting an estimate of the station, find out what kind of answers, or what kind of questions they have, what they can do for us, on an asset management standpoint.
So the in-house people all get together with the first committee, for that brainstorming idea generation. Again, it's the holiday season, it might be difficult to get people together between now and January 8th to have any kind of real commitment. But yeah, breaking it down into a subcommittee concept is not a bad idea. Go ahead.
Why haven't we addressed this in the school guidance counselors kids who don't want to go to college?
We've done that, yeah.
But I think the concept of job fair in general, and certainly outreach to schools to try to entice.
I mean, there's a lot.
As an alternative to a 4-year college education, if you give this type of certificate and have a wage that is in, I don't want to use the dollar amount, but that $50,000-$60,000 plus benefits plus retirement.
A lot of these kids, they go and they'll get an EMT or something like that, a paramedic or whatever, and next thing you know, they're PAs.
Yeah, they're also in Raleigh, North Carolina too.
Steve was saying that.
Yeah, well, that's.
All right, everybody understand that the to-do list, kind of a subcommittee. I think what I'd have you do also then is watch your email, because if I can't get any kind of results by January 8th, then I'm gonna push it probably to the February schedule. It might be too much to ask for the holiday season. I will also contact Fitch, the county pledged up to $100,000 for the evaluation. We haven't even spent half of it yet.
I'm sorry, are you saying after the subcommittee meets the agency administrators, then Fitch is gonna review what we come up with, okay, I'm sorry.
They may be with you.
Right, that may be more on our end to decide, what does this system look like overall?
Okay.
Is it 10 ambulances or do we need 12? Yeah, the cost goes up.
Great.
I'm willing to say, yes, that's okay. I think people are willing to pay for the.
George?
Still sending out those, surveys, right?
Tomorrow morning, you'll get the electronic version that allows you to go right in, and then it self-tabulates on my system.
Is there anything else somebody wants to see for the next meeting?
I was just curious, how did we meet contract? So, is there a way that we know if they're?
George is gonna do survey.
Catskill has completed the survey, all the way up to this point, he was involved with. Yeah, their stuff was all on board.
And I keep going back to the fact that this county does not have a hospital, that's on my mind, and Tom and I have discussed this a lot, and I work with, the Department of Human Services, and I know there's a lot of fear on the part of senior citizens, that they're what's gonna be there. I think that having a unified idea, there, our population is aging and we're a tourism county. Plan.
Well, I think there's things that we can do immediately, like the hearings.
Yeah.
We can do the second step in the training of paramedics. Do some of that on that list, what we can do immediately. And we've got to work on getting the CON if that's what we're gonna need. That's probably gonna take the better part of a year. So.
That's really
Any other questions that somebody might want answered before next month that we haven't talked about?
I think like Tom said, the biggest thing to get the town buy-in is some sort of, something what it's gonna look like. We're gonna buy it.
Yeah, and I think having numbers as to what we think we're gonna need for a system, to staff that system, I think will go a long way to help.
I mean, numbers even doesn't, like you said, the level of care needs to match what the Catskill provides for our residents. I don't think the numbers actually, until we see the construction of the system to buy into, I don't think the numbers matter as much as making sure our residents are gonna have the same level of care.
No, I would agree. I don't think either one of those agencies has, ventilators either. So I think there's a higher level of care actually that we can provide.
Before we break, just for again, the in-service people, the last item on here, we do need to sit and talk about everything from the career pathing to wages, benefits, schedules. Are we doing 8s, 12s, 24s? We need to go through that exercise. And I guess I can't stress enough. We have to listen to the EMTs and the service level today. We can't shove this down your throat. I'm being very cautious not to dictate any solution. The solution's got to come from this floor. There's got to be complete buy-in with everybody. So we need to speak to the employees. They need to be a part of this solution.
We can do a road trip. We need to do several road trips.
Amen.
Sean,
Go ahead.
could we prepare a questionnaire for the employees and say, why are you in the system? As an employee, what would keep you in the system?
Sure, I can do a survey just like we do with the physical assets. Send that out to each agency and every employee. They go on.
We can do a survey, monkey right there, our tourism department.
That's basically what we're trying.
I think that would give the group an idea why people are in this profession and what would keep them in the profession. If it's benefits or working close to home or whatever the system is. If they had a handful of bullet point questions they could answer.
Okay. All right, lastly, on your packets, please insert in your binder so you can keep all that information. If anybody else, in your town board or community, if somebody wants a booklet, just let me know. We'll make up another one for somebody. It's important that everybody has this data. This is totally open book. All right, everybody, Merry Christmas. Have a happy holiday. What, the last question?
Where can you see you? At the meeting?
So it'll be on YouTube, but then we can talk to our social media team to.
We'll probably have it on our website. All right, Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming out.